In this video, we're going to be looking at functions in Excel. There's an awful lot of functionality that you can do in Excel. What makes it so powerful? These predefined functions here. What exactly is a function? Well, it's something where you put something in and it spits something out. For example, we could take multiple arguments. A sum will end up taking a whole bunch of numbers and adding them all together. Let's take a look at how some of these things work. I've got some data already here, which we're going to try and use and apply our functions to. So let's just say we want to take a look at the sum of these marks. Automatically, we do see down here that Excel automatically will count the sum of whatever value selected in the active cells, and it will also tell you how many numbers or how many items it has selected which are not empty. So this says it selected 10 numbers and the sum is 681%. What if we wanted to do that in the actual Excel sheet? What would it look like? Just like when we're doing calculations, we always start functions with an equal sign. Equal to, sum, and a function always has a bracket. And you could always think of it like a mouth. You open the mouth, you can close the mouth. But here, we're going to leave the bracket open. We're going to drag our mouse over top, holding down the left mouse button, and it will automatically select the cell reference that we're looking for. Close off the brackets and press enter. And so it's doing the exact same thing below that we saw before in its automatic calculation. If we want to do count, equal to, count, open the brackets, and that's what makes it a function. It's counting how many things are here, close the brackets, and it will calculate the number of items that are non-zero inside this set. So what happens if we were to delete this? Well, we notice that automatic will update the sum and the count. Control Z, we just undo what we've just done. What happens if we want to calculate the mean, median, mode of this data? Well, we've got mean, median, mode, but mean has another name. If you don't know if something exists, if you don't know the function name, you can always try putting it in and seeing if it auto-populates. But in this case, it doesn't. What's another name for mean? Average. So the average will sometimes auto-populate, and we can select the numbers that we want to find the average for. Close the bracket, press enter. So this tells us that for this test, that the average for this class was a 68%. The median of this class, open the brackets, select the data, press enter, and sometimes you don't have to close the brackets because Excel is smart enough to know that it's supposed to close the brackets. And so the median, this says that half of the students in this class are above 70% and the other half are below 70%. The mode is the most frequent number that comes up. So let's take a look. You could do this visually, but what happens when you end up having over 1,000 values? Now notice here that the mode came up as 0.7, and that's only because remember our formatting, we would need to change this into a percentage. So 70% is the same thing as saying 70 over 100. Percent comes from the French word per cent, meaning 100, and so this is 70 over 100 is 0.7. So sometimes what will happen is students will make mistakes because of the conversion between percentage, or they leave the percentage, or they just drop the percentage altogether. What's the lowest mark? And again, we could obviously take a look at this and see visually what it is, but again, what if we have an extensive amount of data that it just becomes too laborsome to try and figure that out? We've got equal to min, which would be a minimum of whatever we're looking at. Open the brackets, select the data, press enter, and so the minimum value in this class is a 30% for this specific test. The maximum is equal to the max, select the data, press enter, and the maximum says 95% is the highest. Well, what if we want to count something? How do we do that? Well, we've got this countif function, and it's very powerful. And if you're not 100% comfortable or don't really know what the function does, usually we can at least just punch it in here and see what it says. So countif, open up the brackets, and so here it's saying we have to find a range, and here's the criteria. So we have to have some sort of criteria of what we're counting. So here's our range of data that we're going to count. And since this is taking more than one argument, so it's taking a range of values and then it's taking the criteria, we put a comma to divide up what comes next. So we're counting this, the numbers in this data, if, let's just say if they're greater than 50%. So when we do conditions, we have these little quotation marks here that we will be able to put in a specific criteria. In this case, greater than 50%. So this is another way of looking at how many people passed this test. 8. And this does take a bit of getting used to. Let's just take a look how many people did pass if we were to do a visual check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it matches up exactly what we were looking for. Now, you might wonder, what is a virtual die? We have a standard 6-sided die, and we roll it. And we get a number. But it might not seem particularly useful at this point, but using random numbers in Excel sheets can be really useful when we do math questions. So let's just take a look at the rand function. Rand is a function which will end up taking a number between 0 and 1 and just continually spitting out. So if I just press delete in this blank cell, notice that it randomly creates a number. So how do we create a random dice roll? We've got another function called randbetween, and we can go random number between 1 and 6, press enter, and so now every time that we press delete in a blank cell, it will automatically generate a new number. And when you load up your sheet, it's actually going to continually randomly generate new numbers. So your data isn't always going to be the same if you're using a random number. It doesn't really apply to what we're looking up here, but it can be something which is very useful, and this video is focused on taking a look at functions. What if we want to use a conditional if statement to take a look at, did this person pass? Did they pass, yes or no? So equal to if, the logic test, well, we're going to take a look at this is greater than 50%. If it's true, we want this to populate with an n. Sorry, if it's true, we want this to populate with a y. And we end up having strings that must be in quotation marks. If we don't have quotation marks, it doesn't look at it as a string. It thinks it's a variable, and it doesn't know what to do with that. And if it's not true, then we put false. And I suppose what we should be saying is, did they pass greater or equal to 50%? And this person, they did. Now, this is one of the cool things about Excel is you have this ability, you could take this, and you could copy and paste. And what's happening is, it's going to take a look at the next value down. We could copy this and paste again, and it continues to fill down. So we also have this ability where up here you've got these fill options. Fill down is another way to do it, and it will take the formula on the top and it will fill it down. And what's happening is it's taking a look at each number and it's basically copying that formula downwards. And this is extremely useful. Let's just say we got rid of this. Another way of doing it would be Control D. We'll end up filling this down as well. So there are shortcuts, and the more that you use Excel, the more comfortable you get with it. So what if we want to look at if a mark is 70% or higher? Again, using an if statement, if this mark is, well, if it's greater or equal to 70%, then we want to have n for yes, y for yes, and n for no. Press enter. This is greater than 70%. Take this data, fill it down, and notice here, if it's 70%, it does show up as a yes. Now this gets a little bit more complicated, and this is about as complicated as it gets. In this case, we're looking at a range of numbers. So we want to see if a mark is between 80% and 100%. And this will require equal to if, and notice this and. Is it between 80 and 100%? So we're going to need a conditional or a Boolean operator and. This is, first of all, if it's greater than 80%. So we're going to look at greater or equal to 80%, and this mark is less than or equal to 100%. What do we want it to do? Well, first we have to close off the AND statement, then it's a true or yes value if it's true, and an N value if it's not. Notice that you could also just done greater than 80%, and that would have worked too. But I'm at least showing you that what if it wasn't 100%? What if it was between 80 and 90%? Then you have that adaptability with the AND function. Again, take this, fill down, check to make sure it's working. That's 80 to 100, that's 80 to 100. Looks like it's working just fine. What if we wanted to count the blanks? Equal to count blank. And this will count how many blanks we end up seeing in a set of data. This shows 0 blanks, but what if we were to get rid of one? Maybe we want to see if something's missing. We do have that ability. So, at least showing you what you can or cannot do with Excel. Here, we're going to look at this number and we're going to try rounding it. Equal to round. We're going to select the number. How many digits do we want to round it to? In this case, it's indicating we want to round to 0 decimal places. So, it's going to round to the nearest number. In this case, 36.5 would round up to 37. What if we're rounding to 3 decimal places? Round the number, select it. How many digits? 3. Finish it off. And so this is now going to round to 36.541. It looks at this next number, 4. It's not 5 or higher, therefore it doesn't change the 1. What is a floor value? It looks at rounding to the nearest, in this case 1 value, to the lowest portion. So if we do looking at the floor of this number to the 1's digit, the significance is 1. And so it will look at 36 and then it's going to chop off anything after 36 and it says let's go down. The ceiling will round everything upwards, equal to ceiling, the number of significant digits, in this case 1, so it's rounding to the nearest 1's. In this case it rounds up to 37. Just to emphasize what's happening, what if we want to round to the nearest 10's? Floor, this will round it down to the nearest 10, so floor of this number to 10's, and it should be 30. If we want to find the ceiling of this, ceiling math doesn't matter, I don't think. Oh, it does. Ceiling of this number, significance 10, it will round it up to 40. Alright, we've done ceiling, floor rounding. Let's take a look at this here. So what if we wanted to convert this into a sentence? We've got a really powerful function called concatenate. Concatenate takes a whole bunch of strings and it joins them together. We could take this and try this, but it doesn't like that. There is concat, which is a way of taking string values and putting them together. Concat. And it will take them and it will put them together like this, but this may be not what we're looking for. Let's try one more time. Equal to concatenate. And what we're going to do is we're going to select each one and we're going to add our own spaces in between a sentence. Value, put in a blank space. Value, put in a blank space. Value, and close that bracket off. So this is a sentence. And what it's doing is it's taking all of these strings and putting them together. Let's imagine that where exactly would concatenate become useful? Well, let's take a look. What if we're looking to create email addresses for every single student? We can use concatenate here. Equal to concatenate. And we can select their student number. And then we've got this at pdsb.net. So we're going to create our own string at pdsb.net. Close off the quotation marks. And we can take this and fill it down. And now what we've just done is we've created an email address for every single student that we want to email. This can be useful so that we have now just generated a list instead of having to type each one out individually. That's it for now. Thanks for watching Functions. If you have any questions, email me or throw up a question in the Google Classroom.